I also want to talk a little bit about experimenting on yourself. You are going to have so many concerned friends and relatives send you things in your email inbox about new herbs and therapies and lights and tools that are the next greatest thing for Parkinson's disease. And I like the idea of experimenting on yourself, but I want to kind of talk about how to do so responsibly and when to try something, when to hold off a little bit. I think it can be really hard. We have a lot of well-intended people. So the first thing I will say is, like I talked about earlier, you want to know, is the goal here that this is going to treat my symptoms or it's going to slow progression? Again, just to have a reasonable set of expectations. If they say, oh, try this new invention, there's something going around right now where people are wearing buckets on their head that have these infrared lights on them. Before I order a bucket with lights for my head, what I want to know is, what's the goal? Is this supposed to make my symptoms better? Or is it supposed to slow progression? Because if it's going to make my symptoms better, then that should mean that I should start to feel improvement fairly quickly. In the next month or so, I should already be less symptomatic. If the goal is to slow progression, then you have to ask questions like, how long do I have to wear a bucket on my head before it's clear to me that my disease is not progressing as it should? Do you have to sit there for a half hour every day for a year, 2 years, 5 years? So kind of be realistic about why you're taking any of these new experimental therapies and what are you hoping to accomplish. I think that it's really important to let your provider, usually your neurologist, but actually most people with Parkinson's are actually under the care of a primary care provider. But let whatever physician is working with you to manage your Parkinson's disease, it is really important to let him or her know what else you're doing. There are some drug nutrient interactions that we'll talk. We have a whole other video where we talk about drug nutrient interactions, but not all supplements are benign. Sometimes they cause really big problems. 5-HTP with Azilect or Rasagiline can cause huge problems. People wind up in the hospital with serotonin syndrome. So you do want to let your healthcare provider know when you're about to start experimenting with something. And if it's been prescribed by a physician, that hopefully has already been taken into consideration. But the things, I'm mostly talking about the things that well-meaning friends and relatives send you to try. Know that everything has a cost. Even if it doesn't have any negative side effects, it costs money. It takes time. There's this kind of chasing the carrot of the next great therapy. Pretty soon your whole life is spent chasing therapies that you never really know if they're working or not. I see people come into my clinic on 30, 40 supplements sometimes, and I say, why are you taking this or why are you taking that? I don't know. Somebody told me to. I don't know. I read an article that said it was good. And I think that's where you wind up in trouble. Your stomach is filled with more supplements than food, and you're spending sometimes thousands of dollars a month on stuff that you don't know whether it's helping or hurting. So realize that everything does have a cost. Whether you're starting a new pharmaceutical drug or a supplement or a new exercise activity, do this little exercise with yourself. Best case scenario, what do I have to gain? And worst case scenario, what do I have to lose? I'm about to talk to you about how fruits and vegetables are associated with slower Parkinson's progression, right? Like, what is the worst possible consequence that can come from you eating more fruits and vegetables? Maybe a little more expensive. Perishable foods are a little harder to keep around, probably more trips to the grocery store. As silly as that is, that could be something that's a little difficult for people who live in what we call food deserts or have mobility issues, harder time getting to the store. It's certainly easier to survive off of frozen food and boxed goods, canned goods, and so I'd say it's a little more difficult to keep fresh fruits and vegetables around and maybe a little more costly, but that's about it for the side effects. The potential upside, what are the best possible outcomes? Well, hopefully if it matches what we our data says it's going to slow the rate of Parkinson's progression. Oh, and data suggests that the more fruits and vegetables you eat, the less likely you are to get Alzheimer's, cancer, obesity, heart disease, arthritis. You know, like the list of potential benefits associated with increasing your fruit and veggie consumption, this is kind of an easy one, right? Well, come on, let's just, that's an easy equation. For things like intranasal glutathione, you know, we've got some promising data that looks like it may help some people's symptoms. It certainly gets to the brain. I'm going to make a case that it is honestly one of the most exciting therapies that's available. But the way that intranasal glutathione is currently available, as we've used it in our clinical studies, it costs $350, $400 a month. It's inconvenient. It has to be stored in a refrigerator. You have to find a place to lie down and snort it while you're, you know, throughout the day. That's hard to do when you're at work. So between it being expensive and inconvenient, hard to travel with, you know, even though there's a lot of promise, I'm not sure that for most people it's worth $400 a month in the inconvenience at this stage, right? And so for any of these new therapies, whether it's exercise or diet or supplements or pharmaceutical drugs or surgery, I just want you to get in the habit of asking kind of a series of questions. Is this designed to help my symptoms? Is this designed to slow progression? If it works, when can I expect to see results? How will I know when it's working? What are the possible risks? And what are the possible benefits? And when you're covered that territory and you have a sense of what to expect, and when you're in a position to reevaluate and find out if it's giving you the results you hoped for, then I'd say go ahead and embark on it. I think everyone should keep an open mind about participating in research. I am a researcher and a Parkinson's disease clinical trialist. I'm an epidemiologist, and I am a huge advocate for ongoing Parkinson's disease studies, getting more people to participate in these studies. And maybe if there were ever a good reason to not start levodopa right away, probably the best reason I can think of is that there are some studies that won't let you participate if you're already on levodopa. When they design the study, one of the outcome measures we look for is if a medicine truly slows the rate of Parkinson's progression. In theory, it should take longer before you say, hey doc, my symptoms are now severe enough that I need to start levodopa. So in some of the disease modification trials, that will be an outcome measure. So for you to qualify for participation in that study means that you can't have started your medications yet. There aren't a lot of those studies. There aren't a lot of places that people can go to get access in these studies. But if you are fortunate enough to have studies in your area that are enrolling in something like this, and you have been newly diagnosed, that might be the best reason I can think of to not jump right into starting medications, just to find out, have a chance to talk to the research team, learn a little bit more about the study, find out if you even qualify, and if you qualify, decide, is this something that a trial you'd be interested in participating in. And so you can go to a website called clinicaltrials.gov. We'll put the link up on this video. And you can kind of type in your city, type in Parkinson's disease, and see all of the research that's happening in your area on Parkinson's disease for trials that you might qualify for. Michael J. Fox Foundation also has a fabulous database called Trial Finder, and you should give them your name and number, and you are not committing to anything. You do not have to enroll in any studies. When you enroll in Michael J. Fox's Trial Finder, what you are giving them consent to do is contacting you if there is a study in your area for which you might be eligible. It is just a way of staying in the know. They're saying, hey, we are looking for men in this age group with these symptoms. We just wanted to let you know that this study is starting. We think you might be a good match. If you are interested in participating, give those guys a call. If not, ignore this email. And so I do think that registering for the Michael J. Fox Trial Finder is a really fabulous way to kind of learn who's doing what and what options you have available to you. But I can't stress enough that most studies fail to recruit the minimum number of people that they need to get the study done. The Parkinson's community, I think, is probably a little bit better than most communities. This is a really fabulous group of people who tend to be active participants in this community and in research. But I would say, really, even if you've never done anything like this before, you've never participated in a clinical trial before, I would encourage you to sign up for the Fox Trial Finder and just get on the email list so that you are at least given the opportunity to consider participation if that's something you might be up for. You are an active member of the research team. We think of the research team as being the person who designs the study, the person who leads the study, the staff that makes it happen, the statistician that writes the code, the people who fund the study. We cannot do this without patients. Patients are as much a part of this research team as anybody else, and the most important part. So the more diversity and the more of you who participate, the faster we get the answers we're looking for.